بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ومن تمسك بسنته إلى يوم الدين ثم أما بعد. Inshallah ta'ala, what we have prepared is a short kalimah for this evening, but it will be an introduction or the taking of the first portion bi'ithnillahi ta'ala of a tremendous book by the Imam and Mujaddid Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab rahimahullah ta'ala. And this particular book has been entitled Tafsir Kalimah Tawheed. And this topic is of vital importance because it is a must and is incumbent upon each and every Muslim that they know the meaning of La ilaha illallah, that they know the meaning of this kalimah, the arkan of this kalimah, and the muqtada of this kalimah. Because if an individual is ignorant of something, he will not have the ability to fulfill it nor to establish it. As the saying goes, al-faqidu shay la yu'tihi. The one who is deprived of something, then he won't have the ability to give it. So it is a must that we concentrate and we focus in on that which is aham, thumma muhim, that which is most important, and then that which follows it in importance. And bila shak wa bila raib, that which is the most important thing for a human being to know, then that is first and foremost the meaning of La ilaha illallah. فسئل الشيخ محمد بن عبد الوهاب رحمه الله تعالى عن معنى لا إله إلا الله، فأجاب رحمه الله تعالى بقوله: اعلم رحمك الله، اعلم رحمك الله تعالى أن هذه الكلمة هي الفارقة بين الكفر والإسلام. The great Mujaddid Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab, he was asked about what is the meaning of La ilaha illallah, to which he responded by saying, and know, may Allah have mercy upon you, that this kalima of La ilaha illallah, then this is the differentiation between the kafir and between the Muslim, or between kufr, between disbelief, and between Islam. And this is the haqq, that this kalima of La ilaha illallah, then this is the criterion, or this is the distinction, that which distinguishes disbelief from the deen of al-Islam. فقال الشيخ العلامة صالح الفوزان حفظه الله تعالى: كلمة لا إله إلا الله كلمة عظيمة خفيفة على اللسان وهي عظيمة في الميزان. He said that the kalima of La ilaha illallah, it is a tremendous and great kalima. It is light upon the tongue, and it is heavy inside of the scales. لأنها في الحقيقة هي مضمون الإسلام. He said because it is this kalima, in reality, this is the bond of al-Islam. ولكن هذه الكلمة ليست مجرد اللفظ بل لها معنى ولها مقتضى. He said, but rather you will find that this kalima of La ilaha illallah, it is not that which is a pure articulation, but rather it has that, or those things which are necessitated by way of it. And this is something that is very important, because there are many Muslims who they believe that just the mere articulation of La ilaha illallah will have some type of benefit upon an individual, even if this particular individual is unaware of its meanings. And when we reflect and we look at the proofs and evidences from the Kitab and the Sunnah, we see that this is not the way and this is not what Islam encourages us to do. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His noble book, He says, فَاعْلَمْ أَنَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ, and have knowledge that nothing has the right to be worshipped in truth except Allah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's commanding us here in this ayah that we have to have knowledge of La ilaha illallah. We have to know what it means. Because if an individual were to approach anyone from off of the streets, from the non-Arabs, and he were to say to him, repeat after me, say La ilaha illallah, and then that individual, he repeated and he said as such, there is no one except that they will consider this individual to not be a Muslim. And the reason being is because he's articulating words of which he doesn't know the meaning of. But rather, if he were to know of the meanings, and then he were to articulate the Kalimah, and he were to make his Shahada by saying La ilaha illallah, wa ashadu an la ilaha illallah, wa ashadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, then we would consider him and deem him to be a Muslim. Now, what is the difference between these two scenarios? In the first scenario, the individual, he articulated words of which he didn't know the meaning of. Whereas in the second, the individual, he articulated words in which he knew the meaning of. So the fact that he made a testimony based upon knowledge, then it would benefit him and he would enter into the fold of Al-Islam. Whereas just the mere articulation of the Kalimah, but not knowing the meaning of it, then that particular individual, he would have yet to enter into the deen of Al-Islam. So we see that this is very important, and we get an understanding and we get a glimpse of what the Shaykh he was articulating and expressing, and his statement, أن هذه الكلمة هي الفارقة بين الكفر والإسلام, that this word, it is the distinction, it is the difference between disbelief and between al-Islam. وقال العلامة Shaykh Salih al-Fawzan حفظه الله تعالى ولها أركان, and that La ilaha illallah, it has pillars. ولها شروط, and it has prerequisites, it has شروط, يعني لا بد من معرفتها, that we have to know about them. There is no way around it. We have to know about them. We have to know about the muqtada of La ilaha illallah. We have to know about the pillars of La ilaha illallah, and we have to know about the conditions of La ilaha illallah. This is something that is binding upon every Muslim. They have to know this. وقال الشيخ فوزان حفظه الله تعالى ولو كان القصد مجرد التلفظ بها صار كل من يقولها مسلما. He said that if it was just the mere, or just the intention of the mere articulation of it, of La ilaha illallah, then everyone who says it will become a Muslim. لأنه يعني سهل أن يقول لا إله إلا الله, because it's easy to say La ilaha illallah. It's easy to articulate it and to form the words. وَيُصِيرُ مُسْلِمًا, but then the person, he will become a Muslim, and he says it, or just by saying it, وَلَوْ لَمْ يَعْمَلْ شَيْئًا, even if he doesn't act or do anything from actions that are in accordance to it. The Shaykh, he says, فَهَذِهِ الْكَلِمَةِ عَظِيمَةً وَلَكِنْ لَهَا مَعْنَى, but it has a meaning. وَلَهَا مُقْتَضَى, and it has that which are necessitated by way of it. وَلَهَا أَرْكَانٌ, and it has pillars. وَلَهَا شُرُوطٌ, and it has prerequisites. لَبُدَّ مِنْ تَحْقِيقِهَا, and it have to be established. وَلِهَذَا فَإِنَّهَا لا تنفع إلا مع وجود هذه المذكورات. The Shaykh Fawzan, he says, Hafidhullah Ta'ala, and for this reason we say that it does not benefit except if these aforementioned things are there. And this is the reality. So it is a must that we are very diligent with regards to these things, and that we are teaching our families these things. We are teaching our children these things. We're making sure our families and our friends and those whom we love, they know about these things and they are firm about them. Because this is very important, and this kalimah, it is the difference between disbelief and between al-Islam. And it is unfortunate, but we live in a time where the ignorance has become widespread. And there are many individuals who are unaware of the reality of the meaning of La ilaha illallah. They're unaware of that which is necessitated by La ilaha illallah. They're unaware of the conditions and the pillars of La ilaha illallah. And no doubt this is a most saddened state. This is a most despicable state of affairs. So if there is any type of concern that the Muslims will have for the Muslims, then we have to call them to those things which will benefit them. And for at the top and the head of those things which will benefit them, then verily no doubt it is teaching them at Tawheed, teaching them the meaning of La ilaha illallah, that which is necessitated by it, the pillars of it and the conditions of it and the like. So with this, we have to focus in our da'wah upon this tremendous principle. And that is that the islah of the aqeedah, then this is that which takes precedence when calling the people. Likewise, the correction or rectification of the aqeedah is that which takes precedence when in our own studies. Because as we mentioned, the one who's deprived of something, he can't give it. So if we're going to share the benefit with the people, then we first have to be upon it. So as the poet, he mentions, where he says, العلم إن طلبته طويل وعمرك لتحصيله قصير فقدم منه بالأهام فالأهام. That the knowledge, if you're going to seek it, then the road of it is long, and the lifespan in which you have been given and able to attain it is short. So start with that which is most important, and then that which follows it in importance. So no doubt, as we mentioned, that which is most important is the establishment about Tawheed, the learning about Tawheed, the learning of the meaning of La ilaha illallah, that which it necessitates, the pillars and the prerequisites. This is the da'wah. This is our da'wah salafiyah. This is where we begin. Because this is where all the prophets and the messengers, they have begun. Calling their people to La ilaha illallah, to establish the worship for Allah and Allah Ta'ala alone, and to warn their people from the evils of a shirk and from the dangers of a shirk, and to prevent them and prohibit them from all aspects and all types of shirk. This is a da'wah that is islahiyah. This is the da'wah that brings about rectification. This is from the da'wah as-salafiyah, that we start with that which is most important, then we go to that which follows in importance. So with that being the case, we want to take this time to look at, inshallah ta'ala, and to begin to go over the meaning of La ilaha illallah, and to look at this tremendous kalimah, and to study this tremendous kalimah, so that we may be reminded for the one who is already aware of these things, and that we may be informed for the one who has yet to learn about these things. Bi'ithnillahi ta'ala. So I encourage everyone to have a pen and a paper and to take notes, bi'ithnillahi ta'ala, and not just take those notes and then leave them inside of the notebook, but to refer back to them and to memorize the proofs and evidences that are mentioned and the points that are mentioned and so on and so forth, and to write down the benefits and to commit them to memory so that wherever we go, we always have them. So the Shaykh, Hafidhullah Ta'ala, in continuing in his explanation of this tremendous work by the Imam al-Mujaddid Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab, he goes on and he explains, he says, وَهَذِهِ الْكَلِمَةِ لَهَا أَسْمَاء, and that this kalima, it has names. وَمِنْهَا أَنَّهَا كَلِمَةُ التَّوْحِيد, that it is the word of, that it كَلِمَةُ الْإِخْلَاص, that it is the kalima of ikhlas. Naam. So the first one that the Shaykh he mentions, it is kalimatul ikhlas, the kalima of ikhlas. Naam. لأنها تنفي الشرك بالله عز وجل, because this kalima of la ilaha illallah, it negates any type and all types of shirk, polytheism with Allah Jalla wa Ala. وتثبت العبادة لله عز وجل, and it affirms the ibadah for Allah Azza wa Jal. Naam, these names are very important for us to know, because they help us to better understand the reality of La ilaha illallah, or the reality of the meaning of La ilaha illallah. The Shaykh goes on and he says, وَلِذَلِكَ سُمِيَتْ كَلِمَةُ الْإِخْلَاصِ, and for this reason it has been called the kalima of ikhlas, the kalima or the word of sincerity. Ikhlas, أي إخلاص التوحيد وإخلاص العبادة, meaning that the ikhlas, having the sincerity with regards to tawheed, monotheism, وإخلاص العبادة, and having sincerity in worship, that all worship belongs to Allah Jalla wa Ala and to Allah Jalla wa Ala alone. وتجنب الشرك بالله عز وجل, and also staying away from shirk, staying away from all forms and all types of polytheism and associating of partners with Allah Azza wa Jal. So the first of these names of La ilaha illallah that the Shaykh mentions is Kalimatul Ikhlas. The second of them, the Shaykh mentions, he says Kalimatul Taqwa, that La ilaha illallah has been called a Kalimatul Taqwa, كما قال الله تعالى إذ جعل الذين كفروا في قلوبهم الحمية حمية الجاهلية فأنزل الله سكينته على رسوله وعلى المؤمنين وألزمهم كلمة التقوى وكانوا أحق بها وأهلها وكان الله بكل شيء عليما. This can be found in Surah Al-Fath in his verse 26. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says what translated means, when those who had put inside of their hearts the haughtiness, the pride and the haughtiness of the times of Jahiliyyah, then Allah sent down His Sakina, He sent down His tranquility upon His messenger and upon the believers, and He made them stick to the word of piety. Now, the Shaykh is teaching us here that what is meant by the kalimat al-taqwa, or the word of piety inside of this ayah, then it is La ilaha illallah. Naam. So the translation, it goes on and it says, and then Allah sent down His sakina, His tranquility upon His messenger and upon the believers, and He made them stick to the word of piety, La ilaha illallah, and they were well entitled to it and worthy of it, and Allah is the all-knowing of everything. So here in this ayah, as the Shaykh he says, وَالْكَلِمَةُ التَّقْوَى هِيَ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ, and it's something that is very, 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 very important. If someone were to come to you and say in this ayah here in Surah Al-Fatih, verse 26, where Allah Ta'ala, He says, Kalimat al-taqwa, and someone were to ask you, Ma ma'na kalimat al-taqwa, wa ma hiya kalimat al-taqwa, what is the meaning of kalimat al-taqwa, or what is the kalima al-taqwa here? Then we can respond by saying it is La ilaha illallah. Naam. Because this kalima, it is that, that a person, he will say as a shaykh, he says, man qalaha mukhlisan lillah jalla wa ala taqiyahu min an-nar. That the one who says La ilaha illallah, then he will have for him a shield from the fire. Naam, he will have for him a shield from the fire. Like how it comes in the hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said, وَاتَّقُوا النَّارِ وَلَوْ بِالشِّقِّ التَّمْرَةِ, and fear the fire even if it is even if it is by the piece of a date or portion of a date. This kalima a taqwa, it means that a person, he will take a person, he will take for himself a shield from the fire, even if it is by a date or a piece of a date, given that piece of date in charity. So the kalimat al-taqwa here of La ilaha illallah has been called such because La ilaha illallah, it is that which will protect a person and be a shield for a person from the fire. And we understand that if he doesn't have La ilaha illallah, then he'll never be saved from the fire. Whereas if a person has La ilaha illallah, and he lives upon it, and he dies upon it, and he meets Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon it, then his final abode will be the Jannah. The end of his affair will be that individual will be in the Jannah. Why? Because he had with him the kalimat al-taqwa, he had with him La ilaha illallah. Naam, and the Shaykh, he says, لِأَنَّهَا تَقْتَضِي أَعْمَالُ بِرٍّ. And also because La ilaha illallah, it necessitates righteous good deeds. It necessitates actions of piety. And this is something that is important. As the Shaykh, he mentions in the beginning, that La ilaha illallah is not just that which is just articulated. It's not just that which is merely to be articulated. But rather it is that which an individual, he has to know the meaning of it. And then he has to act in accordingly. He has to bring actions that are necessitated by La ilaha illallah. Meaning that he has to worship Allah, and he has to worship Allah Ta'ala alone. And he has to stay away from all forms and all types of shirk. So it is not just that a person will articulate and say La ilaha illallah, but rather an individual, he has to implement it, he has to establish it by performing acts of worship for Allah and Allah Ta'ala alone. Naam, he has to implement his sincerity by worshipping Allah alone. The Shaykh, he says, لِأَنَّ التَّقْوَى هِيَ أَعْمَالُ الْبِرِّ وَالطَّاعَاتِ. He says because piety, it is righteous good deeds and it is obedience. وَهَذِهِ الْكَلِمَةِ تَقْتَضِي كُلُّ أَعْمَالِ الْبِرِّ وَالطَّاعَةِ فَهِيَ كَلِمَةُ التَّقْوَى. He says that La ilaha illallah, that this kalima of La ilaha illallah, that it necessitates all righteous good deeds and all forms of obedience. So therefore it is the kalima of taqwa. Naam. The Shaykh, he mentions thirdly, he says, وَأَيْضًا هِيَ الْعُرْوَةُ الْوُثْقَى, that it is the most strong and most trustworthy handhold. كما قال الله تعالى, and Allah Ta'ala, he says, فَمَنْ يَكْفُرْ بِالطَّاغُوتِ وَيُؤْمِنْ بِاللَّهِ فَقَدْ اسْتَمْسَكَ بِالْعُرْوَةِ الْوُثْقَى لَا انْفِصَامَ لَهَا. Allah Ta'ala, he says, what means, and whoever disbelieves in the taghut, he disbelieves in the idols and those things that are worshipped other than Allah, and he believes in Allah. فَقَدْ اسْتَمْسَكَ بِالْعُرْوَةِ الْوُثْقَى. Then he would have taken hold, he would have grasped the most trustworthy handhold that will not sever. The ulama, they explain to us that the meaning of La ilaha illallah is La ma'buda bihaqqin illallah, that nothing has the right to be worshipped in truth except Allah. The great alim al-allama Muhammad Aman al-Jami, he mentions that a dalil from the adillah which points us to the fact that the meaning of La ilaha illallah is La ma'buda bihaqqin illallah, that nothing has the right to worship in truth except Allah. That from the proofs and the evidence for this is this ayah here in Surah Al-Baqarah, and it's verse 256. And the Shaykh, the Allama, rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentions that it also comes in the same order, meaning that inside of this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, فَمَنْ يَكْفُرْ بِالطَّاغُوتِ, whoever disbelieves in the idols and those things that are worshipped other than Allah, brings the same nafi first. The same negation, it comes first. Just like in the Kalimah of Tawheed, La ilaha illallah. Firstly, you have in it La ilaha. And this is a nafi. This is negation. And you see here in this portion of the ayah that the negation comes first. فَمَنْ يَكْفُرْ بِالطَّاغُوتِ, whoever disbelieves in the idols. And La ilaha, nothing has the right to be worshipped in truth. You see, so it's negation. And then Allah Ta'ala, he says in the ayah, وَيُؤْمِن بِاللَّهِ, and he believes in Allah. And this is the ithbat, this is the affirmation. Just like in the Kalimah Tawheed, illallah, except Allah. Now, so you have here that this is a clear proof and evidence of the meaning of La ilaha illallah. Now, and then Allah Ta'ala, he goes on and he says that whoever does this, whoever disbelieves in the Taghut and he believes in Allah, whoever has said La ilaha illallah, فَقَدْ اسْتَمْسَكَ بِالْعُرْوَةِ الْوُثْقَى, then he would have taken hold of the most trustworthy handhold. لَا انْفِصَامَ لَهَا, لَا انْفِصَامَ لَهَا, it does not break, it will never sever. وَاللَّهُ سَمِيعٌ عَلِيمٌ, and Allah is the all-hearer, the all-knower. So here in this ayah has been referred to as العروة الوثقى. نعم. وقال العلامة الشيخ صالح الحوزان رحمه الله تعالى يكفر بالطاغوت ويؤمن بالله, disbelieving in the idols and believing in Allah. هذا هو معنى لا إله إلا الله. He said this is the meaning of لا إله إلا الله. أنه يكفر بالطاغوت, وهذا معنى, and this is the meaning of لا إله, ويؤمن بالله, and he believes in Allah. هذا هو معنى إلا الله, except Allah تعالى. نعم. فمعنى يكفر بالطاغوت ويؤمن بالله فهو مقتضى لا إله إلا الله, ولذلك سميت عروة الوثقى. He said, so the meaning of to disbelieve in the idols and to believe in Allah, then this is what is necessitated by La ilaha illallah. And for that reason, it has been called the most trustworthy handhold. Now, وأيضا, the Shaykh he says, وأيضا هي كلمة كما قال الشيخ الإمام محمد بن عبد الوهاب الفارقة بين الكفر والإسلام, that it is the distinction between disbelief and between al-Islam. فمن قالها عالما بمعناها, this is very important. The Shaykh he says فمن قالها عالما بمعناها, whoever says it and he knows its meaning, عاملا بمقتضاها, and he works and he acts in accordance to it, صار مسلما, then he will become a Muslim. Then he will become a Muslim. This is important, ya ibad, that we know, we understand these things. And it's important that we call to and that we propagate the correct aqeedah, and that we teach and educate the people of it Tawheed, and that we be warned and we be cautious and we take caution from all groups, all organizations, all individuals and callers and the like, who you do not find them placing an emphasis upon at-Tawheed. You don't find them placing an emphasis upon the rectification of the people's aqeedah. You don't find them placing an emphasis on that which the prophets and the messengers place an emphasis on. Because if you were to find anyone upon this, not taking and not calling to it Tawheed, not warning against shirk, not rectifying the people's aqeedah and so on and so forth, then know for surety you would have found the individual who is on a methodology other than the methodology of the prophets and messengers when it comes to giving da'wah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You will find a person who was upon something else, something different than that which the Anbiya Rusul were upon, something different than that which the Sahaba were upon, something different than that which those who follow them in good were upon. You will find this individual upon that which ultimately will result and end up and equate to destruction. So it's a must that we be warned and we beware, and that we understand these things clearly, and that we are clear when it comes to the likes of Jama'atul Tabligh, when it comes to the likes of the Ikhwan Muslimin, when it comes to the likes of the Zaytuna or Al Maghrib Institute or Al Ikna, Isna, or whoever, that we understand with the surety the destructive nature of the da'wah of these individuals, that they would turn their back on the source and the origin and the foundation of good. It is a must that we understand this and that we know this, and that we never lend our ear to anyone who is upon this way, but rather that we be patient and we stick to and we cling to the way of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the way of the Sahaba and those who follow them in good, and that we call the people to the rectification of their aqeedah. And at the top of that is that we call them to at-Tawheed, and we educate them and teach them of the meaning of La ilaha illallah, that which is necessitated by it, the pillars of it, and the conditions of it. Now, this is very important, because this is what we need to be successful, as the Shaykh he says. Whoever says it and he knows the meaning and he acts in accordance to it, then he will be a Muslim. وَمَنْ أَبَى أَن يَقُولَهَا, and the one who refuses to say it, أَوْ قَالَهَا وَلَكِنْ لَمْ يَعْلَمْ مَعْنَاهَا, or he says it but he doesn't know the meaning of it. أَوْ قَالَهَا وَلَمْ يَعْمَلْ بِمُقْتَضَاهَا, or he says it but he doesn't act with that which is necessitated by it. لم يكن مسلما. Then Shaykh Fawzan, he says, then this individual, لم يكن, he has yet to be a Muslim. He is yet to be a Muslim. The Shaykh, he says, حتى يعرف معناها ويعمل بمقتضاها ظاهرا وباطنا. He said he will have yet to be a Muslim until he knows its meaning and he works with regards to that which is necessitated by it, inwardly and outwardly. This is very, 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 very important. Then the Shaykh, he moves on and he says, هذه أسماء لله إله إلا الله, that these are the names, or from the names of La ilaha illallah, Kalimatul Ikhlas, Kalimatul Taqwa, Al-Urwatul Wuthqa, Al-Kalimatul Fasila Bain Al-Kufr Wal-Islam. فنتوقف ها هنا ونكتفي بهذا القدر، وإلا اللقاء. فسبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.